So I'm talking to you today as the CEO of Agilyx, as you've heard. Now, Agilyx is a pretty small company. We're only about 100 people at the moment, but we believe that we can punch outside of our weight category. And that is so important if we are going to be part of driving what is such an important revolution that needs to happen. We are a leader in recycling technology solutions. And I want to emphasize that word solution because we are not building, owning, and operating units, but we are enabling others to be able to deliver on their needs in this space. And you can see in the bottom left-hand corner of this chart some of the lists of names that we've been working with. At the moment, we're based predominantly in the US and Europe. You can see the various locations, a US company originally, but we're now headquartered in Europe. And I'm based in Switzerland. We've been generating technology evolution over the past 15 plus years. We're now on our 7th generation of technology. We have a patent suite that supports that alongside a depth of know-how and data, which I'll come on to the importance of later, which really underpins this leadership position we believe we have in the area of advanced or chemical recycling. And although we're a technology company enabling others, we do have a first of its kind commercial closed loop plastic to plastic facility in operation in the US. And that, if you look on the right hand side of the chart, sits within the Regenex joint venture. That's a 50-50 joint venture that we have with America's Styrenics in the area of polystyrene to styrene. But in addition to that, within the Agilyx group, we also have a very, very important new joint venture that was set up at the beginning of last year with ExxonMobil. That's a 75% Agilyx, 25% ExxonMobil equity split. And I'll come on and talk about more of that in a moment because it addresses one of the fundamental things that you have to address if you're going to get serious about delivering on this change. So what is the change that we need to make? What's the problem? Well, the problem is vast. Now, the good news is that a vast problem means that it's also an enormous opportunity, and that's the way we see it. I've picked up here some numbers, and the problem in this space of plastic recovery, plastic waste, is that anywhere you go, the numbers change a little bit, but the story doesn't. You know, the reality is there is vast amounts of waste being generated by the world. On this basis, it's 400 million tons, you know, less than 10% of it being recycled. And when you look at what this translates through into opportunity, well, very conveniently, McKinsey released a report that some of you may have seen just a few days ago, which I've extracted a chart from on the right-hand side, talking about the amount of investment that is required just in the advanced or chemical recycling space to be part of addressing this issue. And according to their numbers, having spent, you know, this vast amount of money, then actually we'd still only be part of the way through the addressing this opportunity. So we've got something that needs to happen. And the question is, what do we do about it? And how is our offering actually playing into the moonshot, I love that term, around addressing this challenge, this opportunity? So the first thing to understand is, you know, isn't recycling kind of easy? What's wrong with us all? Why can't we do it? And you've probably seen a chart like this several times before. You know, it's a nice circular layout. You know, we go from a final product to an end user, they throw the stuff away. You can get that stuff and turn it back into a useful product, right? Well, the reality is that's wrong. That's not happening. And one of the fundamental reasons why it's not happening is because this link between waste and a useful feedstock is something that the existing industry is simply not equipped to do. The problems are numerous. The complexity of plastics, you know, lots of people think that plastic is plastic. I mean, I'm talking about consumers. We know in the industry that it's anything but that. You know, there's a huge amount of complexity around what the different materials are, the combinations, what's put in contact with them, what they might have been containing. And that relates to the diversity and variability of waste plastics, because it's one thing in the virgin arena, quite another when it's waste. What do you do with that? Contamination is a huge, huge issue, especially if at the bottom of this screen you're thinking about converting that waste in a catalytic system. That can be a big problem. You know, what we've got is a lack of established supply chains for getting this cycle to work. So it's there in theory, but not in practice. And then we have issues in terms of actually sometimes the existing infrastructure is constraining change. It's making things difficult. It's not actually enabling that drive from 10% to what we think is possible, or what we believe we have to reach, which is 90% recycling. And so the other angle is that actually all the different conversion technologies, advanced recycling, they're not the same. They're looking for different things. And so the demands that they're looking for in terms of the size of feedstock, the contamination, what can be in it, what can't be in it, what they can actually achieve, what the products are that they can produce, those are new demands. So this is a huge challenge if we're going to be serious about addressing this issue. So what does Agilyx do about this? Well, what we've been developing over the last 15 years is the knowledge, the data, the technology to rethink this cycle. Because what we see is an opportunity to think about this in terms of not only what the cycle for plastic is, in terms of that simple one on the right-hand side that we see so often, but what's the cycle for the waste? The waste that's being thrown away, how do you turn it back into a useful feedstock? And what we bring to the market with our two offerings around Agilyx and Cyclyx is the capability to do this. Cyclyx is that offering on the left-hand side. How do you take waste? How do you characterize it from a chemical perspective? How do you then go back and create recipes that are consistent with what a customer wants to use in conversion, and break that down so that you can then develop new supply chains? Once you've got new supply chains and you've got people that need it, which is fairly obvious, people need it, you can start developing custom feeds to those specifications. You can start optimizing. You can start making material available at lower and lower cost. And what Cyclyx is doing or enabling is not just advanced recycling, but it's actually providing opportunity for mechanical recycling, because to address the plastic waste issue, we've got to stop this story about it's got to be mechanical or advanced or chemical. No, we actually need to be doing everything. We need to be addressing this with all the tools in the toolkit. And so Cyclyx is about enabling, driving availability for mechanical recycling, providing availability at the right specifications for different types of advanced recycling that can then be used to have truly circular polymers, but also can produce chemical intermediates, naphthas, and maybe as part of transition fuels. So how do we do this? Because we've got this linkage between Cyclyx, what we refer to as waste to feedstocks, and we have Agilyx, which is feedstock to product. We have an offering on that right-hand side within Agilyx, which actually is extremely important in terms of understanding the interaction with Cyclyx. Cyclyx can support anybody. We're supporting Exxon. Exxon have their own, basically, conversion process. The Agilyx conversion process, though, is really designed around the nature of, let's call it, the most unrecyclable waste, the stuff that's really difficult to get at, the stuff that mechanical recycling can't go to, but also a lot of chemical recycling options which require cleaner product can't do. But fundamentally, we are the only chemical recycler or advanced recycler who's offering this integrated loop, the integrated solution to enable the industry. It's backed up by real fact. We have existing units. We are supplying feedstock, for example, on the Cyclyx side to our partners like Exxon, and we are running units on the right-hand side in terms of that conversion. And that conversion process is able to deal with mixed waste plastics as well as single plastic streams. So for example, that polystyrene to styrene that I mentioned, that's the unit that we have running. But we've been working with Mitsubishi recently and developing polymethyl methacrylate to MMA, as well as mixed waste plastics, as I said before, to naphthas, to fuels, to products that can be turned back into circular plastics. So let's just break this down just a little bit so I can just re-emphasize what are we bringing on each side. So the waste to feedstock side, Cyclyx. It's new waste plastic supply chains. You've got to think differently. You can't just use the same old, same old. Guess what? You're going to get stuck because the existing systems are not suitable for enabling both mechanical and advanced recycling. We do it in Cyclyx through a consortium approach. Yes, ExxonMobil is an equity partner in here, but we're very, very excited about the membership structure, the consortium structure we've been building out. We now have Dow, SABIC, INEOS, we have LyondellBasell and Exxon all in there. That's the 5 biggest plastics producers in the world. They're all members of Cyclyx. But we go beyond that. We have Amsty, we have Braschem, we have people who are in the life science industry, we have retail outlets in there. We have all kinds of people representing the full spectrum of the value chain who are wanting to be part of addressing this new opportunity, which results in driving up availability with the right custom feedstock going to the right customer to meet their need for conversion. And all of that traced through ISCC+. At the same time, the Agilyx conversion piece, that feedstock to product, what is it that makes our offering there unique? Well, it's a very, very flexible process. We can do depolymerization and pyrolysis in the same core equipment. Yes, the ancillaries are different, but the core of the technology is basically the same. It's electrified, the reactor. What that means is we can also deliver huge reductions in carbon footprint using renewable electricity as a supply source. And what we do in this space is we enable others. We've got a firm belief, if you want to drive towards a circular economy, it's not just about using or reusing the existing plastic that's out there. And above ground, I sometimes refer to plastic waste as an above ground hydrocarbon, but it's also about maximizing the reuse of the existing steel. And that's why we are convinced that this licensing enabling model that we have combined with the offering with Cyclyx allows us to maximize that true scope of the circular economy. And as I mentioned before, it's flexible in terms of pathway that you can deliver. Now, one of the things that we've just launched recently is what we call the 10 to 90 brand. Now, you may be wondering, if you saw that, thinking, how on earth does that fit into this? Well, you need to think about this in stages. So we've delivered a conversion technology for taking waste that has been made into a feedstock into a product. We've delivered Cyclyx, which is how do you do that, take that waste and make it something that's usable. Now, what we're trying to do as the next step is drive up the availability of waste plastic. Now, you may think, you guys are nuts, isn't there tons of it around? We just talked about 400 million tons. But what's interesting is that in so many parts of the world, that material is what I can only describe as being leaked. Now, you go to any beach in, well, a lot of the world, you'll find a lot of the evidence of that leakage on the beach. But going into landfill, going into energy recovery, a vast amount of plastic, that above ground hydrocarbon, is lost. And so 10 to 90 is all about leveraging that consortium that I talked about before, leveraging members which are growing and growing in Cyclyx to say, how can we work together to actually engage with communities, engage with consumers, educate them, to actually allow us to capture more of this valuable product, to bring it into Cyclyx systems such that we can then use it and route it to the right appropriate best use, which could be mechanical recycling, or it could be different types of chemical or advanced recycling. So this is really hot off the press, but it's about that imagination of how do you get to that 90%? Because from where we are today, 10% to 90%, well, I mentioned the moonshot thing at the beginning. I think that's about as moonshot-like as we can get. But we have to change. We have to change people. We have to change communities. We have to educate people. And we have to be prepared to change ourselves, to invest and to drive that change through assets, through delivery, and through making this very, very critical step. And so that's what we're offering. Agilyx, between Cyclyx and the Agilyx solutions around feedstock as a service and our conversion technology solutions, we are wanting to work with our partners to drive this change. And I think it is an incredibly exciting journey. There is a big problem out there, but there is an opportunity to solve it, and an opportunity that we are wanting to grasp and work with our partners and our friends to actually make happen.